What's up guys, welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I'm back with a new episode of Naruto Was the Dark Lord of Darkness Part 6. And if you did enjoy the video, give us a like, and if you're new on my channel, like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
11th Chapter Sen's Castle Old Man of the Mountain, Dark Lord 331 Beta. Naruto awoke from his sleep to discover the females all sleeping alongside him, or on top of him in Quelaag's language. He rolled his eyes, but when he felt her hand on his ass, he quickly and quietly separated himself from them before shrugging his shoulders and walking over to Andre and talking to him for a few moments. "Are you going into the fortress?" "Yeah. I don't know what to expect at this point, but from what I've heard, people have made it through before." "Ah, they have, but not for a lack of trying." He sighed, slamming his hammer down on a sword he was crafting. "In truth, that place is a nightmare. Nothing but traps and monsters everywhere, and then there is an iron golem and giants waiting for you on the surface. I should tell you that those monsters are the real problem of this place. Please, be safe, young one. I would hate to lose a good customer." Naruto nodded and said, "No problem. I'm going to take this one as slowly as possible." "Ah, it's because of that young one. Sorta, she is better, but we don't want to push her too far before she is ready, so we are taking this trial slowly to get a better idea of how to fight effectively." "Well, I wish you the best of luck, and please let me know if you require anything. Do you know what I can do with the souls of some of the creatures I defeated, as some are still lingering and appear to be more powerful than others?" "Well, if you want to use that, you'll have to keep upgrading your weapons, but I have a feeling that sword of yours won't be compatible with the souls you have in your possession." Naruto looked at his sword, and while it was not his strongest weapon in comparison to his greatsword, it was doing the job, so there was no point in worrying about it, and thanks to some of the stuff he has picked up, he has upgraded some of his other weapons he has recently picked up, so it isn't that much trouble. As they make their way back to the girls, they discuss their strategy. "Alright, Quelaag, you and I will lead the charge because we use more melee fighting than your sisters." She smiled as she kept her blade close to her side. In her offhand, flames formed. He continued, turning to Quelaagna, "You can play the role of long-range support, casting all the fire spells you know and using them to take down enemies we don't see or who are simply making our lives hell with ranged attacks." Quelaagna gave a nod. He smiled as he turned to face the last one. "Bring up behind, Quelaagna. We don't want to put you in unnecessary danger, and if you can help with support, that would be fantastic." "Yes," she grinned, her voice gradually returning but with a gravelly tone. "I can use my flames to enhance you all and even create barriers to help protect you, as well as enchant your weapons and heal you as needed from any of your conditions." "Alright then," Naruto said, looking at them, "are we ready to take on Sen's fortress?" The three nodded and continued their journey. When they arrived at the bridge, they noticed an opening where the gate had been raised, indicating that there was now a path through. As he walked across the bridge, Naruto drew his blade and narrowed his eyes. It was too easy, and he wasn't about to believe that nothing awaited them on the other side. Quelaag drew her own blade, as flames began to form in her offhand. Quelaagna swiftly produced her flame, which burnt brighter than his own, while the youngest remained in the back and watched. A tall figure emerged from the darkness. It became more visible once it passed through the gate, revealing a quite haunting form. It was a snake with a long neck, wearing only a loin garment, holding a shield in one hand and a sword in the other, and having additional green scales with yellow eyes. The beast growled at them before lunging forward and slashing them with its sword. Naruto raised his blade and prepared to slash forward, but a fireball the size of a tiny ball passed over his head and struck the beast in the face. Quelaag rushed in and slashed it across the chest, sending it to the ground as it shrieked in anguish. The stench of burning reptile was revolting, and Naruto was perplexed by the sudden movement, but he soon heard more hissing. He turned his head to see another snake guy rush them, this time prepared. He drew one of his daggers and threw it at the snake, causing it to raise its shield to block, but he quickly threw another knife behind it, which entered through its foot, causing it to hiss in pain. When it notices Naruto approaching, it leaps forward with its head and attempts to bite him. He did, however, manage to pivot around the bit and bring his sword down with ease, chopping through its neck. The thing spasmed briefly before stopping and turning to dust. Naruto sighed and looked at the girls, who were all calm about the situation except for the youngest, who was just staring at him with admiration. Okay. From now on, we'll proceed with caution, she said, turning to the youngest. Don't do anything you're not sure about, okay? She simply nodded. The four of them continue into the fortress, which is dimly lit. But there was enough light for them to see where they were going in the whirling blades in front of them. Naruto's pupils constricted. Alright, he said to the girls, I'll go first, you three keep an eye on my back, and if I shout for you guys, that means you can cross, just be careful with the blades. The ladies nodded. Naruto began strolling through. Naruto got the timing down by mostly watching the blades sweep slowly from left to right. The moment the sword passed above his head to the right, he smiled and ran along before encountering something. He saw a bolt of lightning pass through his head as he ducked his head. What the fuck is going on? He turned his head to see another lightning bolt shoot across the air. He avoided the blow by ducking under the blast and rushing through the rest of the trap. He made it to the second story before cautiously peered around the corner. He noticed the snake monster on the opposite side of the bridge, but this one had a cobra head. He held 3 curved swords in one hand, leaving the other free. Naruto's pupils constricted. Do you think this is one of the long-range fighters? Naruto extended his metal hand, forming a ball of flame in it. I guess there's no better time to put things to the test than now. Naruto dashed around the corner as he noticed the thing hissing at him. This monster fires a bolt of lightning. As he rolled under the attack, he flung his hand diagonally, releasing a ball of fire. This ball directly hit the snake, and the flames quickly covered the snake's body. It shrieked, hissing and thrashing furiously, and Naruto noticed it was barely hanging onto the ledge. The creature appeared to hop to the side of the attack as it threw another ball of fire. But the jump had cost it, as the monster fell into the abyss with no end in sight. Naruto moaned as he looked over the edge, before extinguishing his flame and drawing his sword with his opposite hand. Hey, girls, keep an eye on the blades, and I'll see you at the end. The females nodded and immediately walked through the trap themselves. They were standing next to him in a few minutes, delighted at having escaped this one death trap. When they entered the other room, however, they heard hissing in the distance, so Naruto put his finger to his lips. Slowly sneaking over the floor, he smiled when he noticed a small stone button on the ground. Quelana, the girl said, perking up, have a fireball ready as this depends on you. The woman nodded, took fire in her hand, and waited. Naruto moved gently around the corner before encountering another snake man wielding a shield and sword. Naruto approached the bridge, causing the beast to hiss. Rushing to him, Naruto dashed back inside the room, stopping right in front of the switch. The snake reappeared in the room, hissing again before slashing at his head. The swing, however, missed as Naruto stooped under the strike, but it stepped on the trap on the floor, causing holes in the wall to open up. The attacks quickly burst through the wall and struck the beast in the side with hardened bolts from a crossbow. Naruto rolled backwards, and a ball of fire passed from his skull and struck the snake, causing it to collapse to the ground. The creature could only hiss and scream in anguish, but it soon ceased withering and vanished in a burst of dust. Naruto groaned and said, "Good job." Quelana gave a sweet smile. "Of course, since I am the creator of pyromancy." Quelog puffed her cheeks as Naruto nodded, jealous of her sister's success. The youngest laughed at how ridiculous her sisters were over the man's praise and affection. Naruto went toward the open area where they saw an opening, but there was a snake creature standing there. It snarled and dashed at them. But then something smacked it on the side, and the creature vanished. Naruto perspired. What is the fuck? Naruto and the girls approached the aperture and slowly peered out to see that the snake creature had vanished, but they could hear something rumbling above them. They returned to the hallway after turning their heads to see a massive ball of earth falling down the stairwell. Okay, so a stone boulder trap, huh? Naruto groaned. Okay, so I'll go first. Take care of anything in front of us on top of the boulder, then you girls come, but make sure you hide in between when you can to avoid the boulder. Quelog chuckled. Wait and observe. Walking into the hall, Quelog drew her blade, which quickly caught fire. Are you sure? Quelog slashed at the boulder as the boulder rolled down the passage again. The quick attack caused the ball of earth to explode, leaving nothing behind. Naruto's pupils dilated. Wow, that is insane power. Thank God we didn't have to fight like this. The woman flushed and grinned. Don't worry, as long as I can stand with you, I'll be at your disposal in any way you need, she said, winking at him. Naruto flushed and raced by her, leaving her smiling. Quelana, the younger sister, either rolled her eyes or smirked.
Naruto sensed footsteps behind him as he walked up the stairs.
Before the gate opened, they turned around and spotted the man sitting on the bridge. Greetings. I can't believe you destroyed this boulder. That was the most amazing display of magical power I've ever seen. Quelaag puffed out her chest. Of course, we are the children of the Witch of Izayeliath. Anything less would be disgraceful in my opinion. The man was taken aback, but then huffed, yet I couldn't do something like this or deal with a situation like this. How embarrassing that I needed assistance. Quelaag smirked. What exactly does that mean?
The man motioned with his hands. I have nothing against you, ma'am, but the truth is that I should have done this on my own, but due to this, I was unable to avoid the trials. My pride will not allow such dishonor to descend on me, so I must keep going. The man rushed up the stairs and came face to face with a lightning serpent, which he quickly defeated.
Naruto wasn't sure what to make of the strangely proportioned warrior, so he just left him alone, and the girls followed him out of the corridor, only to witness another rock roll past them as they proceeded to the doorway. From there, it felt like a huge repeat cycle for Naruto and the girls, as they had to go through another rolling stone trap, but with the twist that he had to pull a switch to manipulate which hallway the stone went down. Figuring that each way serves a purpose, Naruto manipulated it to roll in each direction at least once or twice. They eventually made it down one corridor where they heard a voice. Hello, is anyone there? I could really use some help. Naruto and the girls continued down the bridge and encountered a man wearing a large hat on his head and carrying a staff in his right hand, as well as some kind of book on his side. He was dressed in dark robes and seemed quite proud of them, especially given his current situation. Hello there, the man said, waving. Would you mind lending me a hand? Being confined in this cage with no way out is aggravating, and I don't want to stay any longer than necessary. Naruto gave him a glance before returning his focus to his hat. Is that your big hat, Logan? The man grinned. Yes, sorcerer extraordinaire, I see my fame precedes me. I suppose. Someone from Vanaheim actually asked me to find you here in the stronghold. What happened to the rest of your group? The man sighed and said, I should have figured someone from the academy would follow me out here, especially since the Grand Archives is here. Right. It appears that my party decided I was more effective as a distraction than as a combatant. Morons with blockheads and swords. I'm one of the greatest sorcerers of my time, and yet I'm nothing more than cannon fodder, he grumbled. Naruto groaned and said, Alright, so where is the rest of your party? Most likely in the belly of some of the beasts around here, turned hollow, or were killed by that creature on the bridge guarding the exit. Monster? Yes. Sen's fortress is the final barrier to the capital city of Orlando. To get there, you must first defeat the old iron golem protecting the route. Unfortunately, only 1 or 2 warriors had defeated that demon, and the last I heard, neither of them returned from the capital. That is, defeating the beast as a rite of passage. I see, Naruto said, rubbing his chin. Is there anything special about this golem, like weapons or enchantments?
Yes. There is a giant who appears to throw boulders unless you kill it before fighting the golem. Furthermore, the platform on which it resides is small, making combat tough. Oh, I also heard from survivors or those who were killed by it and fled back to Fire Link years ago that the beast loves to hurl people down the chasm below, so don't let him catch you if you're close to the edge.
Naruto nodded and said, Thanks for the information. Can I now leave this horrible cage? It's frustrating to be sitting here with nothing to do. Naruto nodded, and after some fiddling with the door's latch, he was able to open the cage. Thank you so much. Now that I can't get through this place on my own, I'm going to withdraw to Firelink. I'm curious to see who has followed me all the way out here, as well as what has changed since my last visit. Would you mind doing me a favor? Of course. Keep an eye on the firekeeper over there. Some guy from Lothric is apparently stalking her and even sitting in front of her cage. If he does something to her, the bonfire will be extinguished, which I don't think anyone wants, do you? The gentleman nodded. Agreed. Don't worry, I'll make sure she's secure if necessary. But if he truly is a Lothric knight, it would explain a few things. Really? Yes, they are known for their more fanatical beliefs. They are perilous and unexpected. A word of caution. This individual is looking for anything related to the firefighter, and it is important to be prepared for the situation. Naruto nodded, and Logan returned to the shrine, leaving them to continue exploring the stronghold. There wasn't much to talk about other than finding some unique items, weapons, and gear. There was a moment when they fell into the lower levels of the fortress and were ambushed by the cobra lighting throwing creatures, but it didn't matter because Quailana and Quelaag dispatched them with their sister buffing up their flames. They soon met several Titanite golems roaming the lower floors, and after cutting through one, blasting another to shreds, and slicing another, they returned to the upper floor. They eventually spotted the giant that Logan had described before, and Quailana wanted to take care of it on her alone while the rest of them went to deal with the golem. They agreed to meet later with the promise of meeting later. Naruto and the rest of the party proceed to the final fog gate, where Naruto takes a deep breath and looks at the girls. Alright, pay attention. This isn't going to be simple, so we need to be ready. Turning to Quelaag, he says, make sure you have all the fire attacks you want to use available, and stay alert because this guy is going to take up a portion of the entire arena by the looks of it. Quelaag nodded as she had her sword enchanted with fire and held the blade securely in her palm. Turning his gaze to the child, stay out of range of this guy, keep an eye on where you are on the platform, and, more importantly, see if you can use any buffs to help us in this fight. The girl creased her brow and nodded, you've got it. Before they passed through the gate, Naruto nodded and quickly checked their gear and repaired his sword. There was a golem standing before them, but Naruto had to admit he was bigger than expected and much taller as well, brandishing a giant axe in his hand, and Naruto saw a boulder fly down from above, and he cursed for missing this one. Be careful with your movements. The girls took up positions, with the youngest at the fog gate, while Quelaag led the charge on the golem. It took a sluggish swing, but Naruto saw it produce a shockwave into a long-range assault, and both he and Quelaag rolled under the blows and moved in on his ankles. The golem jumped into the air for a few seconds before slamming down, sending them both crashing backwards. He knew the plan, Naruto said as he saw it hoist its axe in the air and hack it down. Naruto swiped at his ankles while rolling under his punch. Only for the golem to kick him away again, this time with his axe raised and swiping downward at a downed Naruto. However, the attack failed. Naruto quickly rolled around and tossed away his normal sword in favor of Dragon Slayer, which he hefted onto his shoulder and swung at the golem's ankle again, this time slamming his blade into the leg, but the being simply jumped into the air again and created another shockwave, which got both him and Quelaag off of him, but he was behind him while he was in front.
Naruto nodded and pointed to the monster's ankles with his gaze.
Quelaag nodded, and they both grinned, knowing that the youngest was increasing their overall power and speed. Nevertheless, Naruto could sense a scorching sensation around his body, so he knew he had to work quickly. Another boulder landed beside him, and he sprang backwards, glaring at the behemoth who was tossing them. We need to get rid of him. Turning his head back, Quelaag was already on the gigantic golem, this time slashing at his ankles with her flame sword. The blade was tearing through the creature's ankles, and it only tumbled around for a few seconds before swinging its axe and turning to face her. Naruto heard a roar above him and turned his head slightly to see that the giant had vanished, and he smiled knowing that Quailana had finally gotten that damn monster, and he turned his attention back to the giant, slamming his blade into his ankle once more, forcing him to one knee. Quelaag right now. She swiftly began cutting at the monster's left leg, while Naruto began working on his other leg. They were dealing significant damage to the creature between them, but it roared and seized Naruto without waiting. He was being suffocated in the monster's hold as it went to the side of the arena and saw him planning to toss him over the brink. Naruto grimaced as he strained to free himself. But because the thing in issue didn't appear to be struggling against him, he became concerned. A ball of fire landed on the monster's skull. The heat of the explosion pushed the monster to the side, allowing Naruto to slip free and land right before the cliff. That was way too near. When the monster reached down for him again, Naruto quickly rolled between its legs. Naruto spun his blade around and slashed the back of the giant's ankle again, sending it toppling and crashing. The behemoth plummeted over the side of the arena and into the dark chasm below this time, and Naruto and the girls breathed a sigh of relief. Sending his blade aside, he noticed Quailana hurrying over to them, checking on the youngest sister, who was only huffing from consuming so much mana at once and being a little afraid after the ordeal. Naruto, on the other hand, simply sighed. Fuck, it was too close. If I hadn't had the girls, I would have perished. Yeah. We need to be more aware of our surroundings. What the hell is wrong with you? Your senses are better than that. I suppose relying solely on chakra for everything has impaired my natural powers and perceptions. Well, lesson learned. Now I must sharpen them and ensure that I am aware of everything that is going on in the fight. So, with this, we're finally going to clear this fucking castle. I'm going to be sick if I see one more fucking trap like we did throughout this place. Yeah. He smiled as he turned to face the girls. Thank you for all your help, girls. It would have been much worse if I had been alone. The three of them grinned and nodded, with the youngest swallowing something, and her bodies soon gleamed with more vigor than before. We are here for you. Please do not hesitate to contact us. Quailana smiled and nodded. Yes, after everything you've done, the least we can do is join you on this journey. However, I fear that going to Orlando will be a long journey and one we won't be able to return from, so if there's anything you need to take care of, do it now. Naruto bowed. Yeah. We should probably get our equipment repaired, work on our pyromancy, and prepare for the upcoming battles. The girls agreed, and so they returned to Firelink, where, after speaking with Andre and collecting the repairs, they ran into Logan, who was discussing with his errant student. Naruto noticed that the conversation was serious and personal, so he simply left them alone for the time being. He could see he was honoring his pledge and keeping an eye on the situation around the shrine, but he was concerned. When he went to speak with the firekeeper, he noticed the Golden Knight was still seated there. He was staring at her and it troubled him so much that he wanted to question, but the man simply refused to speak to him. This was extremely bothersome to him, but he would deal with it later. Upgrading his flame was beneficial because he was one step closer to earning the right to a higher rank flame, but Quailana noted that he had to earn this flame, therefore they should wait until in Orlando. That way, he can get some practice with his pyromancy, which is undoubtedly still teeming with creatures and adversaries. Naruto was concerned since he hadn't heard anything from Guinevere, not even hints of the capital and what that signified. Naruto walked back to the fort, thinking about the dreams and images he was having. He saw more of what occurred to the dragon and butterfly, but he was seeing more hazy visions of Guinevere and her past for some reason. So far as he could determine, she was married, had a husband who was a god of flames, and he was murdered by Gwyn for failing to support him in his need to keep his age. She saw someone flying off into the distance whom she mistook for her brother, blamed the witch for her inability to make a new flame, argued with her father about this Seath figure, and then allegedly had a child. He didn't see this infant, but it caused a stir among the other beings in Orlando for some reason. Apparently, her rage and loathing for her father intensified as a result of this. From there, he saw that she was killed for the greater good, as his people likes to claim to excuse what they were doing. But, in the end, he didn't know much else about it, and he was worried about what it could mean for him if the visions continued. When they returned to the Golem's arena, they discovered the golden ring on the ground and, after touching it, heard the sound of wings in the distance. When Naruto turned around, he saw some winged monsters flying directly for them, which made him nervous. Naruto is about to draw his blade when he notices the beasts bowing to the girls and screeching something. Relax, they're just here to escort us to the capital, claiming it's Gwyn's will that we arrive in one piece. Naruto grimaced but agreed with Quelaag. The creatures seized all four of them and took off, taking them far away from the fortress and into the distance. Naruto wasn't sure how long the journey had been, but they hadn't been in the air for long before seeing it in the distance. A massive capital. A city of such magnificence and splendor that he didn't know what else to call it. More than that, he was astounded at the size of the buildings and even the castle, which made the undead parish look like a small hut town in comparison. That could have been the objective all along. The sun was shining brightly in the background, which astonished him given how dark and miserable the rest of the world appeared to be. Nonetheless, The capital rose tall and strong above the rest of the world, making it plain that they are delighted to meet all visitors. He wasn't sure if that line of thought was correct. Landing on the city's outskirts, the animals gently placed the girls on the ground while waving at them, while Naruto? He was simply placed on his ass without remorse and flew away. Naruto raised his middle finger at them. The girls chuckled as they took in the splendor of the capital. It's been a while since we were here, Quaylana remarked, but it's still the same city after all this time.
Quaylog gave a nod. Yeah, still has that sense of touch that Gwyn liked to put on his shit. Shiny and holy looking to make it clear, I'm better than you, and to shove his glory in your face.
The youngest frowned and cautiously nodded. Naruto groaned and said, well, since we're here, we might as well see what the city has in store for us, as this undead pilgrimage must mean more than just ringing the 2 bells. The girls nodded, and the 4 of them descended the tower, only to be met by a smaller iron golem brandishing a halberd and shield. Naruto groaned and said, I'm really not in the mood for this shit anymore, Naruto said, holding out his palm, but I guess it's good practice. Naruto swiftly produced a giant ball of fire in his hand and tossed it directly at the monster. This led it to tumble to the ground, its weapon on the ground, and flames to enter the core of the armor. Naruto smiled as he saw his ball of firework, and the monster died as he threw a second one. As he approached the entrance, he noticed 2 more iron golems and motioned for Quaylana to join him on this mission. Both rapidly formed fireballs and began hurling large fireballs towards the iron golems, causing both creatures to collide and eventually collapse to the ground dead. Naruto groaned before stepping out of the building with the girls, taking whatever they needed before arriving in an open space. Naruto marveled at the city's grandeur and how majestic it was in comparison to the rest of the world, but after going away from the edge, he ended up at the campfire, where the group decided to rest for a few hours. Guinevere was in the midst of the vast archive. She was staring at a white figure who towered over her and was wandering the corridors with its creations by his side. Is there no end to what you're doing, Seath? HMPH, as if I needed to explain myself. Your father gave me permission to build this place on my own terms and run it as I see fit. Still, my priestesses. What about them? They should be relieved I found some use for them after all that pointless praying, crying, and screaming. It was quite annoying. Now they are serving a greater purpose as my new experiments in reaching the next step in evolution, it said to her. Because they are still my people. You have done such horrible things for what? More offensive magic. More spells that you have just created after sacrificing hundreds? They should be happy. At the very least, they are stronger and more useful to everyone now, rather than just wasting away. Guinevere sobbed when she saw the blue tentacle monsters. Please forgive me for not protecting you. KKK kill me. Please, my lady, put an end to my agony. Very well. How fucking dare you? It was for the best. They are no longer in pain. She felt something wrap around her body, causing her to stare at the entity in question. Your kind would not have survived the war if it hadn't been for me. All I ask is that you all help me pursue absolute knowledge and strength. Is that so difficult to fucking ask? Not at the cost of my priestesses, the being snarled. Very well, if you don't like seeing them in pain, you can take their pain. Guinevere is sobbing and slumped on the ground. Now then, the thing snarled, don't you ever question me again. She witnessed the horrors committed on another human and couldn't help but turn her gaze away from the beast they had become. Beings with numerous eyes, metal bodies, and no apparent free will. She witnessed more of her priestesses being tormented and mistreated before the white thing yelled. I accomplished it. Guinevere returned her gaze to the grand archives before turning to her right. How would you like to be killed by a dragon, Havel? If it is Seath, then all you have to do is tell me how and when, Lady Guinevere. Naruto and the girls had taken a seat on the balcony, mostly admiring the view of the city and Naruto admitting that leaving that room was for the best.
Not only was it far from anything else, but the woman who lived there was his biggest difficulty. Other than the iron helm she was wearing, he didn't get a good look at the woman. She didn't say anything to them while they slept, she just stood there still and unwavering in their presence. He wasn't sure why, but he thought her presence, together with the rest of the girls, was more than enough to keep him at bay. They mentioned a coldness they couldn't describe.
Naruto had to admit that the architecture in the city is beautiful as they returned to the balcony. Man, this city is massive. There is so much to see in so little time. Yes, Quelaag said, frowning, Gwyn's greatest design. But unfortunately, this city was built on something quite horrifying. Huh. Quailana muttered, it was built on the graves of dragons. Apparently Gwyn decided to really stick it to the dragons after winning the war by using their former nesting grounds as his home and showing them that he didn't care about the corpses that remained, even having Nito break down their fucking bodies just so he can incorporate their corpses into weapon and armor. Now, he just uses them as some of his troops and even makes it a geez. Naruto said as he stared out over the metropolis, and hearing this gave him a fresh perspective on things. If Gwyn built this magnificent metropolis merely for spite and to screw with the dragons, what else was he actually capable of? Was he indeed the benevolent leader that everyone portrayed him to be, or was this only propaganda to conceal his more evil intentions? Plus, it's not like the other lords were here much anyway, Quailana said as she stood at the edge of the balcony. He demanded our mother find a solution with her pyromancy magic, but ultimately she failed. Quailana gripped her fist. That's what led to the creation of the demon race and many of our family falling into absolute despair and even mutations. Quelaag gave a nod. Yeah, but thanks to you, we were able to avoid being cut down as a result of this. She grinned, so, where to next? Naruto smirked. Honestly, I don't know. Looking out at the world, he frowned. The truth is I'm not 100% sure what we're supposed to be doing here. From what I can gather from both the bells and this whole pilgrimage. There is something in this city we are supposed to collect, but what it is, I'm not sure. But there is something else that has been bothering me. True, the females scowled. Do you think it's the monsters and warriors in this city? Naruto shook his head and said, from what I can tell, most of them are golems and those bat-like demons, which means that if they were the only means of defense, most warriors might not have a hard time with this, and even larger parties might have an easier time with this, he sighed. The three nodded and moved quickly to the left. They continued into another structure, where two golems stood guard. Naruto and Quelaag dispatched both of them quickly, with Naruto chopping through its ankles and knocking it over while driving his sword through his neck. Quelaag would strengthen her blade with flames that burned through the metal and into the creature's core, causing it to vanish. They exited the building after fighting a mimic chest, which almost ate Naruto by chance if it hadn't been for Quailana. They were ambushed by another golem, but Naruto summoned Dragon Slayer and slashed off its legs, causing it to collapse. Quailana exploded flames into the armor's slits, killing the magical core inside. When they reached a dead end, they retreated to the balcony, where they noticed a ground floor close to the lift. They proceeded onto the lift and descended until they came across a gargoyle wielding a halberd and shield. Seriously, what the fuck? Naruto pulled his Dragon Slayer and charged the creature, which flew into the air for a second before crashing to the ground with a massive stroke of his weapon. However, it quickly found itself slipping to the side as the weight of the blade carried itself through its body, causing it to dissolve into nothing. Naruto witnessed the thing erupt into dust, and shortly a halberd was lying on the ground. He snatched the weapon and tossed it away, pulling out his regular sword and replacing Dragon Slayer with it. Walking to the finish, they discovered an elevated platform blocking their progress. Hey! They looked to the youngest, who pointed to the church next to them, and they noticed a path leading from a lower portion of the path to the church balcony. They ran through there and found themselves outside the second story of this church. Naruto grimaced as he looked inside. There are enemies inside, and it appears that we will need more mobility to traverse our way across, which means that two of us will have to make it through while the others will follow behind after we have finished killing the enemies. Quelaag consented to accompany him on his adventure, but Quailana stayed behind. Naruto and Quailana entered the chapel, where Naruto grimaced upon seeing a statue of Guinevere on the ground floor. Is this your place of worship, Guinevere? It was, but unfortunately, this serves as a poor reminder of my betrayal because this is also where my father murdered my husband. Are you the Lord of Fire, husband? How did you come to know that? Naruto swallowed. I've been seeing strange visions of what appears to be your past recently. For how long? Because I did senjutsu on the butterfly. What exactly have you seen? I saw some kind of white beast. You had a baby after that, you and your father arguing over something, him killing you, and your time with the animal called Seath, I believe, and how you plan to have someone kill him. I see, so you've known most of my family history since my father, and that's how you found out about my husband. Yeah, you saw his murder of your husband and something about not tolerating failure? Sadly, yes. What you saw was most likely the history in a nutshell. More. My life as Seath's little mate, the birth of my child that was taken from me, the death of my servants who were morphed and him raping me, and also the death of my husband for failing to recreate the first flame. I'm sorry for not having, it's fine, we'll talk about it later, but for now you should know that my father did kill me, and as time passed, he ceased to be the honorable king I once knew. Naruto nodded and returned to the task at hand, which was fighting some of the white-clad figures. While they were more mobile than most of his opponents, they required greater durability. Fortunately, Quelana was able to counteract his movement and even set up a little fire trap on the floor that erupted as he walked on it, killing him instantly. Nice. Thank you. This was the first time I was able to use the fire trap spell I created, and I believe it worked flawlessly. Considering he's dead, I believe so as well. They immediately ascended to the next floor, passing between the beams. Naruto and Quelana walked carefully across the beams, afraid of slipping off, but Naruto had Quelana ready when they detected two more of the white beings ahead of them. After a few well-placed fireballs sent them plummeting over the ledge and to their deaths below, they easily cleared the ceiling. At the same time, Naruto and Quelana arrived at the foot of Guinevere's statue. They yelled for Quelog and the youngest to come over, which they did without difficulty. When the gang arrived at the statue, they decided they needed to figure out how to get out of the building, so they started by walking down left, only to find some chests and equipment material. So, returning to the statue, they discovered that their way to the right was clear and that they could easily navigate the tiny halls. They reached the end of the hall and passed through a fog gate, only to emerge outside on a single stone walkway. They reached the end of the walkway and discovered a wheel in the center of the pavilion, with a stairway at the bottom. Naruto examined it and then the surroundings. It appears that this connects to several locations. Quelana grimaced as she said, "So, turn it then. As long as the three of us are here, we can handle anything that comes our way right now." Naruto shook his head and pushed on the metal line. The entire tower twisted to the left at that point. This move resulted in the tower linking to two lower bridges, one to a big palace-like edifice to their left and another to their right. However, Naruto didn't have time to ponder about it because a screech was heard. When the girls looked up, another gargoyle had flown around them and landed next to the spinning wheel. "Do you ever get tired of getting killed?" Swinging his halberd, the gargoyle. Quelana threw a fireball at the beast, which it swiftly stopped with its shield. Quelog charged the beast with his fire sword, but it blocked him with its halberd once it was tilted sideways. Quelog jumped backwards as the beast opened its mouth. The creature's mouth erupted in a flash of lightning. When Naruto noticed this, he went through his inventory and found one of his daggers, which he flung into the creature's mouth. Choking the monster is the best word he can think of. He wasn't sure if a stone creature could choke, but it appeared that they could. Given that the knife going down its gullet caused the lightning blast to halt. Quelog launched a massive attack, inserting her sword into its mouth and directing her pyromancy into the blade, incinerating the beast from the inside out. The monster vanished in a cloud of dust, much like its predecessors, but Naruto could tell that this one was far weaker. Furthermore, while he possessed some of the same weapons and powers, his capabilities were significantly more limited in contrast. Naruto and the others descended the steps and entered the church. There was a swarm of white-robed individuals there, and Naruto just moaned. "This is going to be annoying." He drew his gun and motioned for them to follow. The girls did, with the youngest swiftly delivering some replenishing flames to help alleviate their exhaustion and give them more endurance going into this conflict. Naruto and the girls swiftly started to work, with Quelana launching massive balls of flame at those who ventured too close, and those who got too close eating large torrents of flames in the face. Quelog moved around the room at breakneck speed, dispatching guards with ease and incinerating any who got impaled on her blade. One attempted a backstab on her, but she quickly ducked and slid beneath the strike, cutting it off at the kneecaps. When its body hit the ground, it screamed in anguish, but she slammed the blade into the back of his throat, rendering it silence. Naruto was making the best use of his fire, hurling fireballs at some and pelting others with torrents of flame. He killed 2 of them with fireballs since they were taken off guard by the attack, but the remainder avoided his maneuvers. Naruto was soon forced to use his sword to dispatch the remaining opponents. With his sword sank into one of their chests, he held out his other hand and hit one charging him from behind with a torrent of flame, causing it to howl in pain. Naruto drew his blade and sliced off the other's head. The room had been cleared. Naruto and the girls searched around the area and discovered various items that could be useful to them in the future. But Naruto did discover some strange armor that he wasn't sure who belonged to. Looking up, he noticed that he was just beneath one of the rafter banners, leading him to believe that he had slid and fallen to his death. Naruto softly prayed for him before picking up his armor and storing it in his magical area. Naruto walked out of the temple after looking at the statue one last time before continuing on to their next destination. Naruto and the girls opted to turn the wheel once again after noticing an aperture on another building that, when turned, would lead to safety and a bonfire. Naruto took a seat on the ground and closed his eyes, telling the girls he was going to catch some sleep because they had more ground to cover in a little. They agreed and went about their business, either napping or preparing the materials they would require. Naruto smiled as he saw Guinevere ministering to the larger souls he had gained in his mindscape. "You're really good at caring for people who are in pain at the same time." She laughed. "Yes, it is the only way I can atone for the mistakes of my people." Naruto smirked. "Guinevere, this appears to be more than just a simple feud or what I would call a pissing match. What is going on? What did your father do throughout the war that caused others to distrust him? You definitely had your reasons for what Seath did to you and your priestesses, and how he did it after ending some of their misery. But this feeling you have with your father, it appears to be deep." She sighed and sat down on a tiny log she had fashioned. "Because that's what it is. True, my father and I didn't always get along, but there was more to why I still despise him after all these years. More than just his killing me out of spite. The truth is that I despised him because of who he was becoming and what he was doing to people." Naruto nodded for her to proceed. "As you are aware, father was terrified of the pygmy race, viewing them as the greatest threat to the people and his reign. More specifically, he saw them as a blight on the planet and feared what they might bring to it. They proved to be not only the most numerous but also the most valuable in the military effort. For some reason, the dragons were fighting them harder than his men or some of the other participants in the war. We couldn't have gotten this far without them. Unfortunately, those who were loyal to him were misled by the notion that he would honor them or how he would honor them. Seath, on the other hand, was a completely other tale. He was a dragon," she said as she clenched her fists. "One who was born without the regular characteristics of his species, such as eyes, scales, and a lower body like the rest of them. He was a writhing tangle resembling a dragon but not an eternal dragon. He envied his own species and was terrified of what this all meant for him. So, over time, he grew increasingly bitter, to the point where when he met his father, they hit it off. Seath taught them sorcery, a powerful type of energy that he developed and that anybody may learn. He devised spells that would allow their mana to slip through the dragon's scales and destroy them when needed." She groaned and said, "This piqued my father's interest to the point where he agreed to whatever demands the dragon had in exchange for this information. Seath desired nobility, access to the vast archives, and access to anything and everything he would require to advance his studies and aid the realm. I'm assuming he agreed. Why would you need him if you had sorcery? His sorcery worked against all enemies, not just normal races or dragons. It was incredible magic that we couldn't grasp. Unfortunately, he was more interested in the archives and annihilating his own people as a means of domination."
So how did you guys win the war? Yes, unfortunately, the eternal dragons were driven from the lands to near extinction. Some still survive, but they are difficult to find because they prefer to dwell outside of Gwyn's sight. He never bothered to pursue them, convinced that he had proven his point, and due to his allies, he kept his promise to Seath.
As a result, he gains nobility and achieves. Exactly. From there, he performed horrifying experiments, captured people for his research, and when the time came, he was curious if he could procreate, she groaned, rising up. As a result, father assigned me to procreate with the monster. I had to carry my child once we verified a pregnancy. I promised I'd protect them from their father and my father, But when she was born, they feared her. She caressed her stomach with a sad smile, fearing her strength and what she might do as an infant. As a result, father snatched her and locked her away from me, banning me from raising her or even communicating with her. My spouse urged my father to reverse his decision, but he refused.
She was then permanently removed, and I was thrown into depression. That is when I was obliged to return to help Seath further, but as you can imagine, this resulted in me locating the priestesses and saving them from their misery, but all I received was raped again. He eventually declared that he had achieved his purpose and that he was done with me. He sent me away and is now just reading and researching all the magic he can and devising new spells to go along with it. Then you talked to Havel, right? Yes, he was a loyal subordinate to my father, but he grew to distrust Seath as a result of his treachery in the war and desire to kill the dragon rather than ally with it. He was causing more difficulty than he was worth. Unfortunately, Havel and I's scheme was discovered just before the relighting, and he was imprisoned in a tower in the Undead Burg, while I was murdered for my crimes.
Whoa, that's heavy. I'm sorry you had to relieve all of that, Naruto moaned. I'm sorry you had to relieve all of that. She shook her head and turned away from Naruto. Naruto, I know I can't force you to do anything, but could you please do me a favor if we continue? Of course. What exactly is it? If we have the chance to let the flame die out, please do so. Why? Because it'll be the only thing I can take from my father that meant so much to him. This will bring the Age of Fire to an end, as well as my father's dictatorship. For what he did to the witch, what he permitted to happen to Seath, and what he did to all of us. It has gone on long enough, it is time for it all to end. She tightened her fist. Naruto nodded and said, okay, if the opportunity arises, I will. You know, I feel like there's more to the story about the pygmy and their city, and these cases of your family, Naruto said with a smile. But I believe we should abandon it. This is clearly bothering you. She laughed. Thank you very much, Naruto. I truly appreciate it. Not a problem, we'll talk later. She waved at him before resuming her seat and frowning. Naruto, there are evil forces at work, and we were afraid of what they were doing. Please be prepared since I believe the abyss has a hand in your fate. Guinevere, the city stretched out before her, and she could see everything as clear as day. Looking back inside her chamber, she noticed a woman with a pale white veil and a white cloak. Could you please give me a few minutes alone, sister? You mean to plot father's demise? Sister. I see your point, but the Age of Fire is everything. Who knows what will happen if it stops? What has resulted from it? Our brother is no longer with us, and our sister is always sleeping. He cast you into the shadows and beat you. Havel gets punished for his treason, which I orchestrated, and Seath is elevated to the status of fucking hero. A hero who has kids in another country studying all he has left behind as magical studies. Tell me, what good is this age if all it brings is deception and confusion from father? If you're referring to New Londo, you should know father planned their treachery. More than anything, he knew they'd try to invoke those terrible forces to overthrow him. How do you think he designed their city? And therein lies my point. He gave them a piece of his Lord's soul, branded them heroes, and then vaguely submerged them when they start planning something. More specifically, I witnessed what he did when he learned about the abyss in that other nation that arose years ago. He practically abandoned Artorias to his fate with no assistance. It was all his will, sister, and you must learn to accept this. I refuse. All he has ever done is try to take us all down his road of madness, she declared to the city. I have nothing but contempt for him for giving up his fragments to that fucking parasitic rapist and those 4 delusional kings. Perhaps an age of darkness is what the world needs to set things right and restore the natural order of things. She pondered. Be careful, sister, that train of thought is dangerous. For what it's worth, the woman said, turning to the left, I shall safeguard the key, protecting her from those who would do her harm. Thank you very much, Gwendolyn. To be continued.
That's it for this part, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope that you enjoyed the previous story, and if you did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for having support, and have a great day.